is Kaylee, and recently on Twitter, people have been wondering why sites like, for instance, Göbekli Tepe were partially reburied after excavations. Many people think that this is done because of nefarious reasons, like for instance, the archaeologists are hiding things that they don't want us to find out. But is that really the case, or is reburial of ancient sites something that's been done a lot, and actually has been done for a long time? Let's find this out together, shall we?
This video is sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command, but as always, more on the sponsor later in the video.
I understand why people may think that reburying of ancient sites happen because they believe archaeologists are hiding something. Especially because usually when we humans bury something, it's because it's dead, we want to hide it, or it's for safekeeping. So I definitely understand that it may seem counterintuitive to bury ancient art or an ancient site that's been excavated fully or partially, but sometimes reburying it is actually the best way to keep it safe from environmental and human threats. It's just like the time capsules people used to bury and then dig up years later, and they buried these to keep them safe and to be able to look at them later on in their original state.
Today we are diving into the depths of the universe like never before. You know me, I'm all about exploring history, but today we're taking a journey to the future. Let me tell you about Star Trek Fleet Command. Imagine a world where you're not just watching the stars, but you're exploring them. In this 4X MMO game, you're not just a player. You're a commander, forging alliances, battling enemies, and exploring the vastness of the Star Trek universe. What I personally love about Star Trek Fleet Command is the depth of the strategy it offers. From recruiting legendary characters like Captain Kirk and Spock to commanding iconic ships like the USS Enterprise, every decision you make shapes your destiny among the stars. And the best part? You can play seamlessly on both your desktop and mobile, so the adventure never has to end, whether you're at home or on the go. Also, if you log in daily, you will receive special welcome gifts, including the epic Romulan officer Nero after just 7 days. Nero boosts the damage of your weapons by 40% if the opponent's ship is burning at the beginning of each round. So don't forget to log in each day and get those special rewards. And for all you new players out there, use the promo code BOOST to unlock a beginner station upgrade content pack, packed with Platinum, Parsteel, Tritanium, and more. Just head over to stfcgift.com to redeem your code and set course for an epic journey through the cosmos. Install Star Trek Fleet Command now and immerse yourself in the Star Trek universe. Become the greatest commander in the galaxy, and who knows, maybe we'll even cross paths among the stars. Don't forget to join an alliance and rise to the top of the leaderboard. And again, use promo code BOOST for exclusive rewards.
It often occurs that archaeologists choose to rebury a site they just excavated because more often than not, exposure to a harsh climate, threats of human looting, excessive tourism, or the threat of people walking on fragile remains, in combination with the lack of resources to adequately protect a site, can lead to the reburial decision. So the best current example of this is the Ness of Brodgar, an ancient Neolithic settlement on the mainland island of Orkney in Scotland. For the last 20 years, each summer has seen an excavation season at the Ness of Brodgar, where archaeologists, along with scientists and volunteers, have dug there. They revealed incredible wonders, like for instance the 5,000-year-old remains of temples, hearths, a ceramic figurine, and elegant pottery. They excavated a portion of the entire site, as lead archaeologist Nick Card said. It's just the tip of a huge iceberg. There seems to be more than 100 buildings here at the Ness of Brodgar, and underneath the most recent buildings lie countless older edifices. But why on earth are they reburying the Ness of Brodgar after 20 long years of excavation? Well, the archaeologists want to leave the newer buildings intact, as they want to avoid destroying them in order to get to the older ones lying below. They have decided to leave that task to future archaeologists when hopefully new technologies have come around and let them decide to dig deeper or not, without destroying everything that they've already uncovered. So on August 16th, the trowels were put down for the last time, and the entire excavated area will be brought back to its former status of an anonymous green field after careful reburial. But what does this have to do with Göbekli Tepe and the fact that a certain person, whom I will not name, simply because I'm very over all the online drama that comes with it surrounding this person, and honestly, all y'all know who I'm talking about anyway, but he threw the idea out into the world that no meaningful excavations have taken place at Göbekli Tepe for 5 years, and that concrete is poured over the megaliths, and that Göbekli Tepe is being completely reburied. Thus, archaeologists, according to him, are hiding something. But, let's debunk this. So first, Göbekli Tepe isn't being completely reburied. There are some sections that have been excavated that have been backfilled for preservation reasons or the safety of the site. We also don't want a T-shaped pillar falling on someone who's carrying out excavations, don't we? No, we don't. Secondly, Göbekli Tepe has been excavated continuously for the past 30 years. This is done during excavation seasons, and these seasons are about 3 to 4 months long, usually starting somewhere around June and ending in October. But the work on Göbekli Tepe lasts all 12 months of the year. Only 3 to 4 months are being spent in the field. After that, they take 8 to 9 months to process and evaluate the data that's been collected in the field. And this has been going on for the past 30 years. Continuously. And there's also restoration work being carried out during the field season as well, which is very important when it comes to maintaining this site for future generations. As for the concrete, it wasn't poured on megaliths. It occurred back in 2018, and the wife of the now deceased lead archaeologist and discoverer of the site, Klaus Schmidt, shared photos of concrete being poured as a new walkway. The area where the concrete was being poured was a protected area of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, and Klaus Schmidt didn't want this area to be crowded by guest groups, and he didn't want a walkway being there. They had a wooden walkway that they could easily remove and that wouldn't harm the site, and apparently these construction people decided to remove that and pour concrete. His wife made this public and showed how she did not agree with this being done, while she was the head of excavations at Göbekli Tepe at the time. Somehow, these construction companies were able to do whatever they wanted, while she was not able to confirm their permissions with the ministerial representative. So she has zero understanding why this happened. She made a public outcry and shared the information with the rest of the world, which to me shows very obviously that the archaeologists working at Göbekli Tepe truly want the best for the archaeological site. I'm actually going to see Göbekli Tepe in October this year, although excavations will probably have ended just before I get to Turkey, but we can still see some of the work that's been done during this excavation season. And who knows? There might be an archaeologist still walking around who might like to answer a question or two. In fact, you can actually join me as I go to Göbekli Tepe. I'm also going to see Karahan Tepe, I'm going to see Derinkuyu Underground City, and so much more. So, join me during my Turkey tour in October. I'll put the links in the description down below. There's actually 2 options for this tour. A full 2-week tour or a 1-week tour for people with less of a big budget that just focuses on Göbekli Tepe and the other sites at Sanliurfa. I would absolutely love it if you were to join me so that we can explore together. And I would like to explore alongside my viewers and visit ancient sites for the first time with you guys. Honestly, that's the ultimate dream for me. So yeah, think about it and click the links in the description down below. But back to the reburying of ancient sites and why this is done. First off, there's no thing as big archaeology. They're not trying to hide the truth. They're simply doing their work, following their passion for history and uncovering knowledge from the ancient world. But let's go back to why archaeologists rebury sites they've excavated and where this practice originates from. So one of the reasons archaeologists started to rebury excavated sites had to do with many archaeological excavations that were carried out in the 19th and early 20th century that put many sites at risk. So back in the day, it often occurred that archaeological sites were excavated without proper understanding of the risks involved, and in a lot of cases, these sites would have been safer and more protected if left undisturbed. So I asked archaeologist Jens Nottroff about the reburial practices of archaeological sites and to share his expert knowledge and opinion on the matter with us. He's an archaeologist that actually has dug at Göbekli Tepe, which is why I thought it was very fitting to ask him. Unfortunately, he was unable to record this himself, but he has sent me a written statement that I will read out to you. So here goes, Jens Nottroff. At the end of every archaeological excavation and even before subsequent research in library, laboratory and office begins, a very practical question arises. What to do with the trenches, assuming they are not, as in case of construction and rescue excavations, a temporary side effect? If they were simply left open, they would become a dangerous obstacle for people and animals. Wind and erosion would further damage the surviving archaeological features and ruins. Covered by layers of soil, they have been well protected for centuries, sometimes millennia, until our excavations have brought them back to light, exposed them to sun, wind, and weather. So it is also our responsibility to ensure that they continue to be protected. Whether this is temporary, as more excavation is planned in the near future, or permanent. The safest thing to do is to refill these areas. There's usually no shortage of suitable material thanks to the excavated sediment collected in spoil heaps at the edge of excavations. However, simply shoveling the same soil back in could raise questions in later excavations if smaller, previously overlooked finds are recovered with the older excavation, now completely detached from their previous find context. Or if it becomes more difficult than expected to decide where this new fill actually ends and where archaeological features begin. How deep to dig if the sediment is not much different? Thanks to our detailed excavation documentation, the position and depth of each excavation is usually easy to understand. However, to be on the safe side, we create a clearly identifiable separation layer before backfilling and resealing these areas, ensuring to preserve them for future research. This is also the reason why in modern archaeology, the complete excavation of such a site is never the intended goal. Every excavation is destructive, irreversible. With its genuine method of obtaining sources, archaeological excavation consumes these very sources. For it is not so much, or not only, the impressive architecture or the amazing finds that is of interest. Much more informative are the find contexts in which they appear. What's next to it, above it, below it? The single find is like a picture on the page of a heavy book. Rip it out and you've got a nice picture, but you're missing the rest of the story written on that page, on the many other pages. What's excavated once is gone forever. It cannot be undone. Hence the meticulous archaeological excavation process. Hence the painstaking documentation of every step and detail. And hence the careful planning of what and where to excavate. Usually, unless it's a site threatened with destruction by environmental change or construction, for example, which might make full excavation reasonable and necessary, this means excavating only as much as is necessary to answer specific research questions that have been developed in advance. But at the same time, preserving as much of the site as possible by leaving it untouched for the time being, until new research questions make it reasonable and necessary to excavate further. Or until future colleagues can hope to gather new information with new and better analytical tools and methods than those that we have now. The last 100 years of archaeological research alone have seen the advent of microstratigraphic excavation, radiocarbon dating, geochemical soil analysis, ancient DNA analysis, and much more. What will colleagues in another 100 years be able to find out? We are aware of the cultural heritage that these archaeological sites and finds represent, a heritage that belongs to all of us, part of our common history, not just ours, but that of those who come after us. So I want to quickly thank Jens for sharing his insight with us here, so that we all have a better understanding of why reburying archaeological sites is so important. So I want to take a very quick look at some of the best examples of reburial. I'll start with the Chaco Culture National Park, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in northwest Mexico. The first official archaeological excavation started in 1896, and after nearly 100 years of continuous excavations, the structures, rock art images, and the integrity of the masonry were threatened due to exposure, and this resulted in the need for continuous maintenance. The descendants of the Chacoan communities appealed for a more passive approach to the care of the park, and this actually resulted in partially reburying the site, returning the structures and their rock art images back to the earth while not allowing the elements to destroy them. Another great example of reburial is the Latoli footprints trackway in northern Tanzania. These footprints date back to approximately 3.6 million years ago. This trackway was excavated by the amazingly famous archaeologist Mary Leakey in the 1970s, and the decision was made to rebury the footprints after the excavations were concluded because of the remote location, the age of the footprints, the fragility of the prints, and the importance of understanding early humans. However, sometimes when we rebury things, it doesn't go according to plan, which is what happened at the Latoli footprints. The lack of maintenance of the reburial mound resulted in the mound being overgrown by acacia trees. The root system of these trees threatened to damage the footprints. So in the 1990s, the Conservative Institute developed an improved reburial and monitoring system to prevent this type of plant growth and erosion to the mound above the important footprints. The local Maasai tribe conducted a ceremonial blessing at the Latoli footprint site when the footprints were reburied for the second time. Another example are the mosaic floors that are often found in the ruins of ancient Roman and Byzantine buildings. These mosaic floors are made of thousands of small pieces of stone and glass that are set in lime mortar. These mosaics are usually very well preserved when they are uncovered for the first time. This, of course, has everything to do with the fact that the floors are the first part of a site to be buried naturally over time when these buildings were abandoned. The problem, however, is the fact that once these floors are excavated, they become extremely vulnerable to a wide range of threats, which has resulted in many of these beautiful mosaics to be lost or damaged beyond repair. So most of these mosaics are now being reburied, or buildings are constructed around them to preserve them. I was recently in Malta and I visited a museum that was once the location of a Roman house. This museum had a couple of beautiful mosaics on the floor, which were quite well preserved, thankfully. But of course, as you can imagine, we cannot construct buildings around every mosaic that we discover. That would simply be way too expensive. It's our job to preserve these ancient sites, to keep them safe for future generations, and sometimes that unfortunately means reburying it to keep it safe. It's also our job to be skeptical of claims made by people online, especially people who have zero affiliations with archaeological sites and excavations. For instance, I am just a science communicator. I create YouTube content. I research topics, I spend time learning as much as I can about a topic, and then I create a video. I always share my sources in the description down below so that you, the viewer, can do your own research if you feel like it. Which is actually something I highly recommend you to do. Do not take something that someone says in a YouTube video or Twitter post at face value. And yeah, that also does include my videos and my posts. I want you to fact check me, to keep me grounded, and do the same for everyone you listen to for news or information about the ancient world. And be very, very skeptical of people who do not put sources in their description. Also, one source claiming something usually shows that the information is incorrect or false. Verify everything you hear. Take the time to make sure you do not spread misinformation yourself, because we owe it to those people who lived in ancient times. It's our job to safekeep their remains, their structures, their art, and to share their real story and not fabricated cool-sounding stories. I love history with an honestly burning passion. It's why I started this channel, and I think it's why I've done quite well here on this platform. But I very, very heavily feel the responsibility to do my part in combating misinformation and fictional stories. And I hope that you remain skeptical of everything you hear. So I have one question left for you. What do you think of reburying archaeological sites? Do you understand why archaeologists sometimes make these decisions? Let me know in the comments down below. And please, seriously, consider joining me in Turkey. I would love it for you to be exploring alongside with me as I go to Turkey for the first time in my life.
Don't forget to download Star Trek Fleet Command and use promo code BOOST for exclusive rewards. Me being a big sci-fi fan, I'll probably see you in the game.
If you enjoyed watching, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos, and click that bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I upload. If you haven't seen my previous videos yet, then click the card in the upper right corner, or click one of the links in the description down below, or click a video in the end card. I would also like to say a massive thank you to my patrons and my channel members, and for those that do not want to use Patreon or the channel memberships here on YouTube, you can actually go to historywithkaylee.live and you can send me a one-time donation or a monthly reoccurring donation. And that actually goes 100% to me. And I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.